Sawadee ka! Welcome to Hot Thai Kitchen. Today I am making possibly the most requested dessert recipe ever. I'm making Kanom Krok, which are these little coconut pancakes that are sort of crisp on the outside and custardy and soft on the inside. I mean, every person who has these for the first time has told me they've been shocked at how good these are. That's why they're requested so often. And finally, today's the day I'm going to show you how you can make it at home. Let's get started. So there are actually two portions to this recipe, the shell and the filling, but the ingredient lists are really simple. I've got here some jasmine rice, cooked jasmine rice, a little bit of palm sugar, you can do white sugar if you want, rice flour, some coconut milk, and some shredded coconut. Here I use desiccated, but in Thailand they just use fresh grated. Both of them will work fine, and some water. And all you do is throw everything into a blender and blitz it up. That's it. Does not get any easier than that. Start low so you don't kick up flour all over the place. Whew. There we go. Now there's gonna be tiny little grains of rice and coconut, whatever. That's totally fine. You just don't want like big pieces of coconut, but a little texture is always nice. All right, let's mix up the filling. So I just realized that I forgot to add salt into my shell, so I'm just gonna add a little bit of salt now and give it a whisk. So the filling is actually the easiest thing ever. There are 4 ingredients. There's some coconut milk that I've got right here. I'm gonna sweeten it with some sugar. However, it's a very flexible recipe, so if you wanna make it a little sweeter, you can add more sugar. If you want less sweet, you can do less sugar. Some parts of Thailand actually makes Kanom Krok not sweet at all. And then what they do is they serve it with sugar on the side and people sprinkle it at the end. So that's totally an option for you. I don't really like it that way, but you know, it's an option. A little bit of salt, don't forget. So the filling's gonna be sort of a salty, sweet, custardy combination. And a little bit of rice flour to bind everything together. And that's it. Now, if you're wondering why am I adding rice flour and cooked rice to this, there's a reason. So rice flour is what's actually going to set the dessert. Like that's the flour in our dessert. Cooked rice will actually add flavor because rice flour is just the starch, there's no flavor, but whole rice grains have sweetness and fragrance. It really makes a difference when you do rice and rice flour together. So this is the hardest part of this whole recipe. It's not that hard. It just requires some technique and a special equipment, such as this pan. This is a takoyaki pan, as is indicated by this little octopus. It works fine for this recipe, but just bear in mind that in Thailand, Kanom Krok pan is actually shallower than this, but it'll still work. We just won't fill it all the way. There are also other sort of rounded pans that are for stovetop. You can use those. I think they're for Dutch pancakes or something like that. Somebody will tell me in the comments. But those I find way too big. Like those are huge. And I like this particular pan because you can actually, there's actual temperature adjustments. Some other brands, it's just either on or it's off and you can't really control it, which I don't like. Turn it on to 325 on the low side so we give ourselves lots of time. If you want to buy this pan online, I got this on Amazon. I'll put the link in my kit and I'll put that link right up here and in the description below. This is a non-stick pan, but I'm gonna grease it anyway with some coconut oil because I find the bottom crisp up nicer when there is some oil in there. So I'm just using a little coconut oil and brushing it. And I'll just do half at a time. That's hot enough for me. So here is the technique. You wanna first go in with the base. And if you are using this pan, go in with about half a tablespoon. And it doesn't have to sizzle. That's totally fine. I'll just do 3 for now. And then the filling goes in. So the filling, you want to put just 1 teaspoon. And watch this technique. It makes a big difference, okay? You take this 1 teaspoon of filling and you like dunk it into the center and then wiggle your spoon a little bit to make sure that the shell actually comes up the side because that's what is going to keep everything contained. So the goal of Kanom Krok is for the 2 layers is to create a nice gradient of a shell that's well cooked, and then as it gets to the top, it becomes loose and custardy and super soft. And on the street, you'll notice they pour the mixture from height, and so when they pour the top, just from the height of the thing falling, it mixes anyway. But I don't have that kind of skill and accuracy. So this is a technique that I've devised that works really well. Let's try this again. Half a tablespoon in the base. And if it sounds like it's sizzling quickly, you want to go in there with the filling right away because you don't want the bottom to cook too much before you go in with the filling. And notice I'm like digging my spoon right into the base. By doing so, you push the bottom shell up the sides, and so your sides are also cooked. Okay, that's the important part. We're gonna let this cook until it's nice and crisp and brown on the outside. You'll notice that the top will start to set as well. Fillings, let's talk fillings. The most classic one is green onions, which you might think, what are you doing putting green onions on my dessert? Trust me, it works. I never thought it did as a kid. I refused to have the green onion one, but now as an adult, I'm like, you know what? That's kind of good. So just a little bit onto each one. And then the other one that's really popular is corn. So this is corn kernels that have already been cooked. Just a few. Finally, I've got some cooked taro. This is not as common, but definitely was where I grew up and I love it. So I'm gonna put just a couple pieces in. So these are already cooked as well. So now I'm gonna fill the rest of these. Now on the street, what they like to do is they cover it and it allows it to steam and it'll cook quickly. I actually like to let it cook uncovered, at least for the most part, so that the bottom has time to really crisp up. And this is a secret I got from one of the Kanom Krok vendors, actually. She told me that when the vendors are in a rush and they want to turn over quickly, they rush these and then you don't get as crispy of a Kanom Krok. But if you let it go slow and low, that's when the crispiness happens. Now that we have our time, we can let it go. All right, so once you start to notice that the bottoms of these are well browned, and if you're ready to take them out, but you feel like the top hasn't quite cooked, then you want to get a pot lid or something and cover. And that's it. And with the cover, it'll just take like 1 minute to set the top. That's why you don't want to do this too early, because then you don't have time to develop that crust. Getting it out is a whole nother challenge. Since this is a non-stick pan, you want to be really careful. I'm going to use a metal spoon, but you want to be careful not to scratch it. What I do is I use a toothpick, and then I insert the spoon underneath and lift it out gently. And then you want to make sure you let this rest on a rack so it doesn't steam and then you lose that crispiness, okay? And that is it, you guys. It's not that difficult, just requires a little bit of technique. Now, instead of doing my usual thing where I plate everything nicely for you before I eat it, I'm gonna eat these right now because you do not want to eat these cold. Like, these are not good once they've cooled down. We have a crispy shell that's holding a very moist custardy thing in the middle. So that crispiness is not gonna last long. So you want to make sure that you eat this while they're still hot. Not straight out of the pan because that'll burn you badly, but you know, give them like a few minutes. Now, characteristics of a good Kanom Krok is first, crispy bottom. I think you can hear that. And second, smooshy, soft center that's super custardy. Ah, so good. Oh, there's nothing like it. Nothing like it. Like I said, crisp on the outside and that toasty brown flavor, and just rich, moist, luscious, soft on the inside. This reminds me, make sure you use good quality coconut milk for this. That is where most of the flavor is coming from, and if you're using crappy coconut milk, the flavor is gonna go downhill. So if you wanna know what coconut milk I recommend, how to look for a good coconut milk, I do have a video for that. I'll put the link right up here. So I'm gonna keep going and finish these off, but I'll say goodbye to you right here. The recipe, as always, will be on hotthaikitchen.com, and also remember the link to this pan, if you're wondering about it, will be in the description below and also up here. When you make it, definitely send me a photo. I would love to see these on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. I'm also on Pinterest now, by the way, for those of you who are pinners. If you haven't subscribed to the show, make sure you do so you don't miss an awesome recipe like this. And click that little bell icon as well so you get a notification when I post a new video. If you love the show and you want to support us, check out our Patreon link in the description below. And I will see you next time for your next delicious Thai meal. Hydrate. That way it doesn't